This is Korea News for April 28, 2022. As the use of daycare facilities was disrupted due to continued closures due to COVID-19, the average daily time spent at daycare centers for infants and toddlers decreased compared to 3 years ago. Parents who choose home childcare are also reluctant to use the part-time childcare system that can be used in emergencies due to the risk of contracting COVID-19, so the number of visits to daycare has significantly decreased. On the 28th, the Ministry of Health and Welfare announced the results of the 2021 Child Care Status Survey. The survey is conducted every 3 years for 2,500 households and 3,300 daycare centers receiving child care fees, infant tuition, and child care allowances. First, the average daily time spent in daycare for infants and toddlers was 7 hours and 12 minutes, which is 12 minutes less than 3 years ago. Closed due to the spread of COVID-19. Parents who have chosen to raise their children at home have also been affected by COVID-19. When home caregivers need emergency or temporary child care services, they can use the part-time child care service, where they leave their children at a designated institution, such as a daycare center, at a cost. The rate of use of part-time child care remained at 3.2%, a drop of 3.9 percentage points from 3 years ago. In addition, 41.2% of respondents said they knew about the system but did not use it. The average monthly child care cost per household, 976,000 won, rose by 107,000 won, even though the cost of using daycare, 56,000 won, decreased by 5,000 won from 3 years ago. This was also a result of COVID-19. Instead of extended holidays and fewer special activities, people are turning to outside activities, purchasing textbooks, and using online programs. Although the number of users of parental leave increased significantly from 3 years ago, 62.9% still said that they had no experience of taking it. Among the 37.1% who said they had experience using the product, 87.87% were overwhelmingly women using it alone. Males alone accounted for 5.66%, and married couples only accounted for 6.47%. The Ministry of Health and Welfare is contemplating expanding the 24-hour care system, including part-time child care. Parents had the most trouble with child care due to early and late work. In addition, work to expand national and public daycare centers will continue. The most desired child care policy was the expansion of national and public daycare centers by 22%. An official from the Ministry of Health and Welfare said, "We will increase the number of national and public daycare centers by 500 each year to raise the use rate of public daycare to 50% by 2025. After the salt farm slaves in Sinan, Jeollanamdo, the modern version of slavery has occurred again. At a barn in Iksan, Jeollabukdo, there was an incident where people with intellectual disabilities were used as slaves for 30 years. It has been argued that the intellectually disabled has been living an inhumane life next to the barn for over 30 years, exploiting the labor force and deducting the cost of receiving it. The Jeongup Temporary Workers Support Center in Jeollabukdo announced on the 27th that a 40-year-old man with severe intellectual disability had been exploited as a labor force for nearly 30 years at a cattle ranch in Iksan from May 1992 to March last year. Person A ate and slept in the container next to the barn, fertilizing, cleaning, etc. In particular, Ms. A was in charge of raising 50 cows, but she did not receive a proper salary. Mr. A received about 900,000 won each month, including disability pension, housing subsidy, and basic living expenses, but Mr. B, the owner of the barn, used it all with a bank account. The amount that B embezzled amounted to 91 million won. This fact was discovered late when the family of A recently visited a congratulatory address. An official from the Jeongup Temporary Workers Support Center said, "The exploitation of labor by the disabled has been going on for a long time because it is not easily noticed," he urged. Meanwhile, it is known that the owner of the barn offered a settlement of 50 to 60 million won after the family protested. The Jeongup Non-Regular Workers Support Center is preparing a complaint to the police and the Ministry of Employment and Labor, considering that the exploitation of labor force against Mr. A requires legal action. On the 27th, the Presidential Transition Committee announced, the elected president has a strong will to realize the promise of 2 million won per soldier's salary by President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol. A spokesperson for the Transition Committee added, "I understand that the Foreign Affairs, Security and National Defense Subcommittee, the Keynote Subsection, and the Economy First Subcommittee are in consultation with each other about how to realize the 2 million won monthly salary promise." North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said, "Our nuclear weapons cannot be bound to one mission, to prevent war." North Korea, which has been pursuing nuclear development under the pretext of war deterrence, is now blatantly threatening to expand the purpose and scope of its use. In his speech at the military parade commemorating the 90th anniversary of the founding of the North Korean military on the night of the 25th, Kim Jong-un virtually foretold a seventh nuclear test, saying, "We will continue to take measures to further strengthen and develop the nuclear force possessed by our country at the fastest possible speed." Tensions have risen sharply ahead of the inauguration of the Yoon Suk-yeol government. North Korea also mobilized all new weapon systems aimed at South Korea and the United States at this military parade. In particular, the new submarine-launched ballistic missile SLBM unveiled this time has a longer length and a larger warhead than the North Pole SLBM, which was first unveiled in January last year. The basic mission of our nuclear force is to deter war, Kim Jong-un said in his speech at the military parade. He continued, if any force attempts to usurp the fundamental interests of our country, our nuclear force will have no choice but to carry out its second mission. The Presidential Transition Committee criticized on the 26th, saying, for the past 5 years, North Korea has been concentrating on developing tools that threaten peace not only on the Korean peninsula, but also in Northeast Asia and the world while seemingly insisting on peace and dialogue. On the other hand, Moon Jae-in and the Blue House did not make any official statements. Jin Young-kwan, a former professor at Dongyang University, staked President Moon Jae-in on it and would ask him if he fell, he strongly pointed out Blue House Medical Secretary Tak Hye-in-min. Former Professor Jin Young-kwan said on his Facebook page on the 27th, President Moon Jae-in should be fined if he takes him without a muzzle. Earlier on the same day, Secretary Tak told YTN Radio about President Moon, who is about to retire soon, saying, he will make an enormous effort to be forgotten. Same, he said. Then he said, I hope that President Moon will live the rest of his life really happily after he leaves office. Politicians also criticized the remarks. Kim Young-hwa, a standing advisor in the Planning and Coordination Division of the Presidential Takeover Committee, also criticized Tak's remarks, saying, the limit of my language is the limit of my world. Add dignity to your words. Professor Kim Jae-sik, who served as the head of the Strategic Vision Department at the Yoon Suk-yeol camp, said, I'm going to ask, are you calling yourself a hound that protects President Moon? Samsung Electronics stock price fell to the 52-week low at the beginning of the 27th. As of 9:10 a.m. on the same day, Samsung Electronics traded at 65,001, down 1.66% from the previous day in the stock market, breaking its 52-week low. In the New York Stock Exchange on the 26th local time, the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index of the U.S. also plunged 4.38% along with the Nasdaq Index, minus 3.95%, due to concerns about a slowdown in China due to the lockdown. Samsung Electronics announced good results in the first quarter, but its share price has been weak since the beginning of the year due to uncertainties in semiconductor demand caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and U.S. Federal Reserve tightening. Some places have employed a new advertising model with the expectation of resumption of economic activity after the coronavirus. Lotte Cheilsung Beverages Cloud recently re-released its first model, Jun Ji Hyun. Jun Ji Hyun is the first contributor to raising market share by taking on the role of a model when Cloud was launched in 2014. Even when he was hit by a misunderstanding during the boycott of Japanese products in 2019, he came out as a relief pitcher, and this is the third time. An official from Lotte Cheilsung Beverage said, the recent relaxation of social distancing has increased expectations for the reopening, and marketing for alcoholic beverages is active. We plan to carry out various marketing activities this summer together with Jun Ji Hyun as a model. In fact, it is positive that the recovery of the entertainment market is being sensed in the liquor industry. The entertainment market accounted for 40% of the sales of alcoholic beverage companies this month. It is an explanation that the nightlife market showed signs of recovery after the COVID-19 crisis, with the proportion of the home market declining to around 70%. As the government began to phase out social distancing on the 18th, it is predicted that the recovery trend of the entertainment market will become even more pronounced in the future. Now, GM Korea is competing with business sites around the world to receive investment from the head office. However, inflexible labor-related systems and strict investment incentive conditions from the government and local governments are obstacles. At the Industrial Development Forum held on the 27th, President Kaher Kazem, who is ending his 4.5-year term as GM Korea CEO next month, left a solid piece of advice to Korea. This means that there are many factors that make them hesitant to invest, even with the world-class parts supply chain and excellent manpower. Kazem pointed out the labor-related system and insufficient investment incentives as the main problems. He said, it is becoming increasingly important to quickly respond to the ever-changing demands. He also pointed out, the regulations on dispatched and contract workers are unclear, acting as a significant risk to the business. President Kazem, who was banned from leaving the country on charges of illegal dispatch, said, in developed countries, labor-related acts, which are usually civil regulations, are subject to criminal punishment in Korea. Is going crazy, he said. He also said that Korea is passive compared to other countries that are engaged in an incentive war to attract foreign investment. It is pointed out that the construction of a new factory or large-scale expansion, which Korea uses as a standard for incentive payments, is far from reality. President Kazem said, we recently invested KRW 1 trillion in upgrading our Changwon plant to produce new cars, but it was excluded from incentives. At the forum on the same day, the president of the European Chamber of Commerce in Korea, Dear Lookit, also came out and complained. In particular, regarding the Act on the Punishment of Serious Accidents, Chairman Lookit said, "Our member companies are concerned about safety enough to apply the same standards they have in Europe in Korea, but the current Act on the Punishment of Serious Accidents has many ambiguities. I sincerely hope that this law will be discussed again." This meant that the Act on Punishment of Serious Accidents was difficult to understand even by European standards. President Jang Jae-hoon of Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power said on the 27th, "Nuclear power is an energy source that emits almost no carbon dioxide, and will become an energy alternative to lead the realization of carbon neutrality." President Yoon said this at the opening remarks of the 2022 Korea Atomic Energy Annual Conference held in Bexco, Busan on the same day, and said, "The nuclear power industry must do its best to fulfill the social responsibility required in the future by actively responding to this trend of the times and enhancing competitiveness." In order to fulfill the mission of the era of carbon neutrality, President Yoon, who is the chairman of the Korea Atomic Energy Industry Association, which hosted the event, urged the safety of nuclear power plants, creation of new growth engines, healthy development of the nuclear power plant ecosystem, and social responsibility. As a specific new growth engine, he mentioned SMR, a small module reactor that the nuclear industry is paying attention to recently, and introduced that many countries are making efforts to develop technology that links SMR and hydrogen production, and various discussions are underway in Korea. "The entire nuclear power industry is like a single organism," said President Yoon. Meanwhile, President Yoon, who took office in April 2018 after the inauguration of the Moon Jae-in government, is known to have taken the lead in promoting the nuclear phase-out policy. He was indicted last year and is awaiting trial on charges of being involved in manipulating the economic evaluation results as if the economic evaluation of the Wolsong Unit 1 nuclear power plant was not economical. Staff canteens are special to Korean manufacturing. It is the only space that confirms and nurtures the sense of bond and belonging of employees in an industrial field that operates 24 hours a day. Since ancient times, the saying "eat one pot rice" is not for nothing. The first place CEOs go to for horizontal communication with their employees is the restaurant. In 2019, Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong, standing in line with general employees at the Samsung C&T cafeteria, became a hot topic. Today, I would like to talk about the understanding of rice and management, and the bizarre imaginations of civil servants who have dug this into the category of transactions. Among the cases that the prosecution is investigating due to the Fair Trade Commission's accusation, there is a case called unfair support of Samsung Group's Wellstory. Wellstory, a wholly owned subsidiary of Samsung C&T, has provided daily meals to more than 100,000 Samsung employees. The gist of the complaint is that in the past, Samsung's Future Strategy Office mobilized Samsung Electronics, etc. In the press release, the Fair Trade Commission even stated in the press release that Wellstory provided the profits thus obtained as dividends to its parent company, C&T, and that the money would again go to the family of Vice Chairman Lee, the major shareholder of C&T. The incident started at the end of 2012, when young employees of Samsung Electronics complained about the restaurant operation one after another. Complaints about the poor quality and lack of taste heated up the company's internet bulletin board. It was a situation where key talent had already left to Google or Apple. At that time, Choi Ji-sung, head of Samsung's Future Strategy Office, saw that the situation was not serious and ordered his staff to come up with special countermeasures. Wellstory immediately raised the cost of food, and its affiliates, including electronics, also increased the cost of meals paid to Wellstory. All these processes were recorded and passed to the Fair Trade Commission. The Fair Trade Commission viewed the series of processes as unfair support and in June last year filed a complaint against Choi Ji-sung for violating the Fair Trade Act. Wellstory's high operating profit rate of 25% on average for the past 9 years from 4 Samsung companies, and Samsung's internal meeting materials are attached. At the time of the announcement, he was imprisoned in the Seoul Detention Center due to the National Nongdan incident. He was said to have maintained his composure enough to be referred to as a mental man among inmates, but he was devastated by the unexpected news. His prison life can be attributed to the fate of being caught in a historical vortex, but he must have felt an indescribable sense of failure when his judgment and instructions for his staff turned into over-loyalty towards the owners. Another point worth noting in this case is that the Fair Trade Commission framed the benefits of the rice price increase to the Lee Jae-yong family. In a nutshell, it was that Samsung family owners eat away from their employees' meals. To make a judgment, you need to check a few numbers. The dividend the Lee Jae-yong family received this year is a little over 800 billion won. As the Fair Trade Commission claims, how much would the Lee Jae-yong family have benefited from driving work? From 2015 to 2019, Wellstory recorded a net profit of around KRW 70 billion annually. During the same period, the dividend paid to Samsung C&T, the 100% largest shareholder, was an average of 50 billion won. If this money is distributed to the Lee Jae-yong family, who owns a 30% stake in the company, it can be estimated at 15 billion won per year. Was Lee Jae-yong, who receives more than 300 billion won in dividends a year even as an individual, counting dividends from the restaurant business while eating with his employees? It is up to us to judge the probability. The operating profit margin of 25% should also be looked at. The average is 25%, so it seems like someone designed it elaborately, but it ranges from 21.4% to 27.2% by year. In the world of business, there is no such thing as haggling while looking at the profitability of a trading company. Even in the same group company. The Fair Trade Commission says 25% is high no matter how much you look at it, but the question of who will judge the appropriate profit remains. Would you say that 10% or 15% is okay? Basically, is it possible to ask for a reduction in the price of rice while asking for it to be delicious? Wells Tory is the group's last company, but it is a gap for Samsung Electronics presidents. It's not because he's strong, but because of the resentment of the employees behind him. When I'm in a hurry, I hear a voice called an incompetent manager who can't even take care of a meal for his employees. This event tests the imagination of our society. The question is whether Choi Ji-sung set the price of food generously for the employees, or was he trying to pay more for the owner's dividend? Only one of the two will be true. The elite officials of the Fair Trade Commission's Business Group Bureau ran with a conspiracy theorist. A frame was adopted to demonize Lee Jae-yong and Choi Ji-sung. Now the ball has passed to the prosecution and the courts. I hope the scales of the Korean judiciary have a fair slope. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.